Hey everybody, and welcome back to part number 2 of our Barony Bridge playthrough. We are going to have a shorter episode today because I fit most of this into the last episode, but when we finished up last time, we had just finished up this Vekoma looping coaster. So what we're going to do now is put the brakes on it and get it all connected up to our path so we can open this thing up. At this point, we're pretty close to our victory conditions here, so it's not going to take too much more to get us to where we need to be, but we still have a full year to go in the game, so it's going to be a pretty straightforward one in this instance. So we'll go ahead and connect this thing up to the pathway here. The station is a little bit higher up than I might have otherwise put it, but it just ended up being that way with the requirements for the size of the thing. I didn't want that lift hill to take the station too far away from kind of the main portion of the ride. In any other instance, we could very easily theme that to fit with a custom station building or something, but it didn't really work out in this instance. So we're going to call it a day there, connect the path, and get it going. So now we've still got a fair bit of space that we can expand to on this side. We're not going to use the whole thing, but we do have the space for it, so I can fill in some of those different pathways that we've already done and create another space for an info kiosk here, sell us a couple of more umbrellas, I suppose, a couple of food and beverage locations and all that, fill in those 2 gaps on either side of that carousel space, and really that is going to get us situated on that side. We still do need to remove the other carousel. I said we were going to do that at one point last time, and we'll get to it. It's just a little later on here. So we're still researching different stuff, and at this point I really didn't want to do a new major coaster because I didn't think we really needed it, but we will go ahead and do a small one here in a minute. We do need some handymen, though, because we have been getting a lot of litter in the park, and we just had the one guy who was really trying to clean up for the whole park, which wasn't going to be enough, and that's fine. We really don't need those in the beginning, and I'm not too worried about it from the outset, just because a little bit of litter or throw up or whatever it is doesn't really affect your park rating that much in the grand scheme of things. So as long as we take care of it eventually, then we should be all good. So we're going to stick a log flume through this thing. If you remember the commentary from last time around, I mentioned that Ninja at Six Flags Over Georgia, which is now Blue Hawk, which is what this one was based off of, started its life in New Jersey at Dinosaur Beach, where it was called Kamikaze, and underneath of it there was a rapids ride that ran through kind of around the whole thing. Even some of the supports on the coaster were customized to get around the rapids ride. So I wasn't going to do a rapids on this one because we can't put that thing in the water, but we can do a log flume. So what I thought we'd do is try and squeeze it through here. So I started right in the middle of it and just tried to see what we can squeeze through this whole thing. And you can kind of see I'm trying to pick a level that will fit through most of the stuff, and it is very forced. I don't typically love doing something this completely forced, but it does fit, and we're getting to where we need it to be. So it's just a matter of trying to get the remainder of it through here. So we're going to thread both of those corkscrews, which would be kind of neat. Not super plausible maybe, but that's all right. And then we'll pick our station location right there, and we'll go ahead and do a more sort of traditional log flume element here with that raised section of kind of curving S-bendy slalom type sections, ending in one big drop here at the end. So that's what we're going to work on right now, just to get it to line up more or less right where we want it to on that final drop there. So here we go, and there we are. The nice thing is we don't need a retention pond on this one because we got a giant river or lake or whatever underneath of this thing. So ideally this thing would just pool from the water for all of the filling and refilling of the ride. So that's an easy one. I know Clementon Park in New Jersey actually used to do that for their log flume. I don't know if that flume's still open or not, but that was a pretty big one too, and out over the lake as well. So we'll go ahead and open this guy up with a fair bit of queue and the number of boats, and now we can kind of fill in the rest of our stuff here. So bring in a restroom, bring in some more food, just we have the spaces and we might as well make it as solid as we can. That's really the whole goal here, since this whole thing's over the water, is make the whole area, if we can, look as solid as possible, so it kind of feels like it's it's one continuous pier, I suppose. So that's the intention anyway. I wanted to take the cycle monorails and see if we might be able to raise the thing up and put it over and around our first carousel and our scrambler and stuff like that. But the height requirement on this thing, the maximum allowable height off the ground, is super, super low, especially when we're already starting with the water being in the way, I suppose. So what I did was remove a section of the bridge, because it's really not much of a bridge any longer. So we're going to go ahead and wind this thing through and fit it into this little square of space here. And there's not really a queue, but also I guess we don't really need a queue on this one since it's a single person vehicle. So that way somebody can just walk right in and get on the thing, and that works just fine. So would be nice to have a queue. Only challenge here is that we only have a 2-tile station, so that means we only have 2 ride vehicles. So it's going to be a little bit of a struggle. So maybe it's for the best that we don't have a queue. Figured I might as well do something similar here in this side as well. So we're going to do another car ride since we already had one of those earlier, but why not do another one? There's nothing wrong with more than one car ride. So I'm going to wind it through this whole space and do a little bit of elevation change so we can kind of duck the thing underneath and do a bit of a crossover and connect it back in just like that. So this one we do have space to put a queue in, and we'll call that a day. Open that guy up and get him rolling. I think the red always looks nice on the sports cars, so that's what we'll go with. And I generally like sort of muted tones on the track, so either black, gray, or brown. So we'll do something of that nature there. We did unlock the crooked house, so I'll go ahead and stick that here, just so one other rain-protected thing. So we can go ahead and do that, put our queue there, and then also go ahead and connect in our pathway here. So we have another loop of path, another section for food and drink. All good getting that one situated. So if you remember right, we have our Peep that died last time falling into the water and drowning over by the swinging inverter ship. It was Danny P. So we made our memorial to him over on that side with the pink flowers. So we'll go ahead and fancy that up just a little bit here a little later. But I do want to make this section here by the corkscrew coaster into a bit of a pier and go ahead and add in the couple of food stalls as well. We'll also toss a ride in there here a little bit later. We are starting to get a couple of different food and drink stalls. So we got the ice cream stand there, which the nice thing with the ice cream stand is you can change the color of that bucket. So that way you can at least offer a little bit of variety there. So we'll go ahead and do that in a couple of spots here in just a minute. And we can squeeze it in there. One of the other things that I wanted to do now that we have this tower from the bridge that's just kind of not used anymore is make a viewing platform. I thought this could be kind of interesting to have a bit of a viewing space up higher off so you can maybe kind of see the rest of the park. So we can cut through the middle of it on the diagonal there, going up through it, sloped up pathway. And then I wanted to give it just a little bit of variation here and sort of hang it off the side of this tower. So I think that looks all right. And now I believe we're over the goal, which was 1,200, I think. So we are there with still half a year to go, which is kind of nice. We got room to just hang out and finish. We're not using advertisements or anything. The nice thing is when you don't really have to think about the composition of everything, because there's just really not a lot of things to compose, like landscape or like texturing of the ground or any of that. You just really don't need to do it. So that's the nice thing. We are going to lop off the top of this drop tower just because it's a little bit too tall. So we were getting some fairly crazy stats on that one, and everybody was getting sick. So figured we might as well remove a little bit of that and shorten it up just a bit. So I think that's just fine. So now we'll go ahead and put in one of our last rides, which is going to be a single rail suspended coaster. So this is one of the Caripro or set point type swinging coasters. So it's the suspended little individual carriages. We'll go ahead and do 2, I think, on this one. But these are pretty simple, and they're pretty simple in game. You really don't have a lot of options to play with. I don't think you even have brakes necessarily. And we can really squeeze this whole thing in, and it's just going to be basically a downhill gradient since we don't want a whole lot of height variation on this. We don't want a whole lot of big drops and big climbs. Really, we're going to try and focus on cornering so we can swing the cars around a little bit. And it doesn't take much to do decent things with this little ride. So we'll go ahead and select the cars and open it up. And there we go. Interacts very nicely with the rest of the rides and kind of winds its way over top of the whole thing, which looks fairly nice. Color it something decent. And now we have our final little coaster here. So that makes 5 coasters in general as our carousel goes and spins everybody off. But it's a decent fit, I think, and rounds out the amount of coasters that we're going to do. I was looking at a couple other things that I could build in here, like the helicopters, and I thought maybe we might want to tie this one to our next pillar on the bridge. So we'll go ahead and do this, and initially I was trying to maybe stick it over top of the car ride, but then I thought, well, we've got space over here, so we might as well use it and build something here. So we'll go ahead and do a fairly standard sort of symmetrical ride layout here, which we just need to move over a little bit to get our queue in and the exit path as well. So I'll go ahead and do something similar there, which works decently well. This is one of the first monorail cycles and helicopters that we built since we got both of those in the expansion pack, but I think it looks just fine. And we will go ahead and alternate colors for that one, make it at least semi-interesting there. There's not too much you can do with that, although you can change elevation on that, which is nice. I said earlier we were going to stick a ride out here on the pier, and we'll do a Ferris wheel and put that here on the edge, and makes for a nice little viewing, I guess, as you're approaching the park from that side, so you can kind of see that nice wheel and everything else on the way. We'll spice up our Danny P. Memorial here with a couple more flowers and a nice little pathway that wraps around the whole thing and a good little seating area we just really haven't had the space to do anything with, and it does seem like we might as well take advantage of this tiny little island and put some kind of plant life on there. It's just sort of a weird spot to just have the whole thing sit on there. Finally, we will go ahead and replace the second carousel. We're going to put in a circus there, so we've pretty much used all of the big rides that we haven't used before. So Crooked House, use the circus, use the monorail, the single monorail, and the helicopter cycles. All of those things are done now, so it's just sort of an easy add whatever we can. And now we'll go ahead and throw in a couple of balloons. The nice thing with the balloons is you can change colors of these as well, so we'll go ahead and do a blue, a yellow, and a red. That way we can get our guests to buy some balloons, so it has something nice to look at once they release it for our win, which is in half of an RCT month right now. So now it's really just a matter of hanging on until the very end here. We've well surpassed our goal, and we're winning right there. So let's go ahead and take a look at the real-time portion, and then we'll do some before and after. Alright, so here is our finished Barony Bridge, well over the goal, and doing just fine. Like I said at the very beginning of our first episode, this is another terrible scenario, just because there's nothing super interesting you can do with it, with the limitations given. We're not using scenery, we're not using landscaping, we're not using land adjustments or anything like that, so I think we did the best we could, but here we are, and that's alright. So let's dive into it. We did remove some sections of the bridge here, so now it's a little more like some kind of a pier with the sort of abandoned remnants of the bridge being used. We tried to collect all of our rides into kind of one solid mass, so it kind of felt like some larger platform, like some kind of a pier or larger construction up over the water. We can't really do that with everything, so we got strange things like the car ride here that just sort of hangs over the edge of the water and just kind of sits there. Same with the mouse and some other stuff like that. But we do have our couple of coasters here. So here's Barony Blizzard, which is a high, very high, and medium. Very high most likely because we've got a couple of fairly fast unbanked corners, but that's the vibe we're going for here. So we have the kind of nice double out and back layout here with that start that goes through a couple of little hills before we get to the lift hill itself. You gotta see the turnaround right here, and then final drops and return, kind of cool interaction here with the blue and the red train coming across, and then over and into the brakes. So not too bad, decent little ride, nothing too special on it. Then we have our LNT mouse, which never ended up getting renamed. This is just a wild mouse based on LNT systems layout. high, medium, which sounds about right. I don't think I ever actually reset the block brakes from when I had first put them in, but this is a fairly standard fare. It's a little bit taller than it maybe ought to be, but I think it works okay. Our bobsled over here, this is the mock bobsled based on Blackpool Pleasure Beaches. Fairly simple stuff here as well, just a couple of slaloms down, a helix, and then finally coming into the brakes. One of the things that I never do on these, and I probably ought to do more of, is the upward helix at the end, because pretty much all the mock bobsleds, like the one at Europa Park and the one at King's Dominion and the one at Blackpool, they all have an upward helix at the end to scrub off a little bit of that speed before you get into the brakes. So maybe that would be a better thing to do next time. We will see. Did I look at the stats? It's high, medium for that one as well, which is about what we expect. And then here we have our mini suspended coaster. Let's see if we can pick up the car. There we go. So fairly short layout that does the usual things you would expect. Couple of corners, couple of S-bends. Continuous drops. We don't really have any climbs on this, but we're not really looking to do that. Typically, you just don't on here. Low across the way. So, yeah, we're going to figure that one's just a filler more than anything. Finally, we have our larger corkscrew coaster based on Ninja at Six Flags Over Georgia. High, medium on this one. We did use the new pieces to make a fairly decent layout, I think. So medium loops here, large corkscrews, large corkscrew into the small loop, a couple of okay elements, I think. I don't really love the finale. After we come through here, we go up diagonally and then into these corkscrews. Then there's this basically just oval before we hit the diagonal brakes, which isn't a bad thing necessarily. It's just I would have really liked to have done something a little more interesting, like a figure eight finale or a crossover or something. Anyway, all diagonals are always better, so something to keep in mind as you build rides. And of course, our log flume is threaded through here fairly nicely, I think, so that looks okay. We'll go with it. And all the other different rides, our cycle monorail here, our helicopter ride that's raised up, both of our car rides. On the whole, I mean, we filled the whole thing very well. Like I said, nothing super interesting on this one. To be honest, what I find more interesting about this map is all of the other landscaping, because to be honest, I feel like the rest of the landscape will actually make a really interesting park. And I thought maybe this would be something to do in a future build once we finish the scenarios and stuff, is basically own all the land on this map and build our park as if the bridge is just part of the park and we have the landscaping on either side to work with. Because I think you could probably make some pretty cool stuff. You could have a sky ride going across the water. You could do a couple of rides that drop down over the water, or some boat hires into the space. I don't know. It just feels like a much better way to deal with this map than just plonking everything in the middle of the water when we have all this beautiful land to work with on the side. But, oh well. This is the task that was given, and this was the task that was beaten. So we took care of it, and next up is going to be Funtopia, which is one that I always like, especially Grapevine, a pretty iconic one of the original game coasters. We are going to fancy it up a little bit and make it slightly more realistic, but there's a lot to look forward to on that one, because I think that one turned out pretty good, and I'm excited to share it with you guys. If you want to catch any of these streams when I do these live, twitch.tv/Amusement Academy for all of those things. Typically, I go stream on Fridays. If you join our Discord, you can get updates for when I go live, or just join us in general coaster and other conversations. There's links below to all of that in the description here. We'll go check out some before and after, and then we will come back with the next episode here momentarily. So thank you all very much for watching. Always appreciate your comments, your likes, your all of the things that interact with the video. Much appreciated, and always great to see your feedback and your thoughts. So thank you very much, and we will catch you in the next one. Bye now.